Zethkari stared at the datapad in their long, blue fingers. The assignment looked simple enough. First contact with a new species called humans, from a planet called Earth. Nothing unusual about that. Zethkari had done this work for 300 years. They had met over 400 different species across the galaxy. This would be just another routine job. The ship's computer hummed quietly as it showed pictures of the humans. They looked ordinary. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head, no claws, no armor, no special abilities that the sensors could detect. Their eyes could only see a small part of the light spectrum. Their hearing was limited. They had no natural weapons, except small teeth that looked more suited for eating plants than fighting. Fascinating, Zethkari whispered, though they did not mean it. The humans seemed boring compared to the crystal beings of Xerion or the gas cloud entities of the Nebula Reach. At least those species had been interesting to study. These humans looked like they had barely figured out how to leave their own planet. The preliminary report made them sound even more ordinary. Humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel 50 years ago. They had no psychic powers. Their technology was basic, but functional. They seemed to live in groups and cared for their young like most mammal species. The report classified them as low threat, high cooperation potential. Zethkari's assistant, Veltar, entered the small cabin. "The Times Serenity's voice times will depart in 2 hours," Veltar announced. "All diplomatic protocols have been prepared according to standard first contact procedures." "Good," Zethkari replied, still reading the human data. "How long until we reach their space?" 18 standard days at current speed. The humans have agreed to meet us at a neutral location. They seem eager to establish diplomatic relations. That made sense. Most new species wanted to join the Valtharian Confederacy. The Confederacy offered protection, trade opportunities, and access to advanced technology. In return, new species had to follow certain peaceful guidelines and share their knowledge with others. Zethkari had seen this process hundreds of times. A new species would be discovered. They would be nervous but excited about joining the galactic community. There would be cultural exchanges, trade agreements, and eventually, full membership. Sometimes there were small problems, but nothing that careful negotiation could not solve. The Valtharians were good at this work. They had been doing it for thousands of years. Their species valued peace, knowledge, and cooperation above all else. They had never failed to bring a new species into the Confederacy peacefully. Not once. "What do we know about human culture?" Zethkari asked. Veltar consulted their own datapad. "They appear to have many different cultures on one planet. This is unusual but not unknown. They have art, music, and literature. They seem to value something they call freedom very highly. They also appear to form strong emotional bonds with family members. Normal mammalian behavior," Zethkari noted. "Anything else?" "They keep animals as companions, even though these animals serve no practical purpose. They call them pets. The humans seem to care for these creatures as much as they care for their own offspring." Zethkari found this mildly interesting but not surprising. Some species formed bonds with other creatures. It usually indicated a peaceful nature. "Good news for the mission. They also have an unusual number of stories about conflicts," Veltar continued. "Wars, battles, struggles of various kinds. But their recent history shows they are trying to move away from violence. They have formed a united world government and have not had major conflicts for several decades." "Excellent," Zethkari said. "That shows they are learning to solve problems peacefully. This should be a simple mission." Zethkari packed their belongings and prepared for the journey. They included gifts from various Confederacy species, translation devices, and cultural exchange materials. Everything was standard procedure. They had done this so many times they could do it without thinking. The Times Serenity's voice times was a beautiful ship designed for diplomatic missions. It had comfortable living spaces, meeting rooms for negotiations, and areas for cultural displays. The ship itself was meant to show the benefits of joining the Confederacy: advanced technology, peaceful purposes, and elegant design. As the ship prepared to leave, Zethkari looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the humans were waiting. They were probably nervous and excited about meeting other intelligent life. Most species were. First contact was always a big moment in a species' development. Zethkari felt a small amount of sympathy for the humans. It must be frightening to learn that the universe was full of other intelligent life. But it was also wonderful. The humans would soon discover that they were part of something much larger than their small planet. The ship's captain, an experienced Valtharian named Mordeth, came to speak with Zethkari before departure. All systems are ready, Ambassador. The crew is prepared for standard first contact protocols. Do you have any special instructions? Nothing unusual, Zethkari replied. The humans seem like a typical developing species. Peaceful approach. Cultural exchange. Gradual introduction to Confederacy benefits. We should have them signing preliminary agreements within a few weeks. Mordeth nodded. I have read the reports. They do seem remarkably ordinary. Almost disappointing after the last few species we encountered. Remember the Zephyrians with their ability to manipulate gravity? Or the Chorus Minds with their shared consciousness? Every species has something unique to offer. Zethkari said diplomatically. Even ordinary species often surprise us with their perspectives or abilities. But privately, Zethkari doubted the humans would be particularly surprising. They seemed like another standard carbon-based life form that had managed to achieve space travel through persistence and luck rather than any special abilities. The ship launched smoothly into hyperspace. Zethkari settled into their cabin for the 18-day journey. They spent the time reviewing human data, preparing presentation materials, and practicing human language sounds. The translation devices would handle most communication, but learning a few words in the native language always made a good impression. As the days passed, Zethkari became more confident about the mission. The humans seemed straightforward. No complex social structures to navigate. No dangerous technologies to worry about. No unusual mental abilities to accommodate. Just a simple species ready to join the galactic community. Zethkari had no way of knowing that this mission would change everything they thought they knew about intelligence, determination, and terror. The humans were indeed ordinary in many ways, but some kinds of ordinary could be more frightening than any special ability imaginable. The meeting took place at a space station in neutral territory between human and Confederacy space. Zethkari felt nervous excitement as the Times Serenity's voice times approached the human ships. This was always the most important moment in first contact. The initial impression would set the tone for everything that followed. The human delegation waited in the station's main docking bay. Zethkari could see them through the viewing ports as the ship connected to the station. They looked exactly like the pictures, but somehow different when seen in person. They seemed smaller than expected, but they stood with confidence that seemed too large for their physical size. Ambassador Sarah Chen led the human delegation. She was a middle-aged woman with gray streaks in her dark hair and kind eyes. When Zethkari first met her, she smiled in a way that seemed genuinely warm. Not the careful diplomatic smile Zethkari was used to seeing, but something real. Welcome, Sarah said in accented but clear galactic standard. We are honored to meet you. Please, let us show you our hospitality. The first few days went better than Zethkari had expected. The humans were remarkably open about everything. They shared detailed information about their technology, their culture, even their military capabilities. Most species were more careful about revealing such sensitive information so quickly. Are you not concerned about showing us your defenses? Zethkari asked during one of their meetings. Sarah looked confused by the question. Why would we hide that? We want to be friends. Friends do not keep secrets from each other. This openness impressed Zethkari. It showed that humans were truly committed to peaceful relations. Most species took months or years to share such detailed information. The humans seemed almost naive in their trust. The cultural exchange sessions were fascinating. Humans brought art, music, stories, and food from their various cultures. Earth apparently had hundreds of different human societies, each with its own traditions. Zethkari had never seen such diversity within a single species on one planet. How do you avoid conflicts with so many different cultures? Zethkari asked. We do not always avoid them, Sarah admitted. But we have learned that our differences make us stronger. Each culture sees the universe in a different way. When we combine those viewpoints, we understand more than any of us could alone. The humans shared their music, which ranged from soft melodies to loud, energetic rhythms that made Zethkari's hearing organs ache. They shared their visual art, from realistic paintings to abstract sculptures that seemed to have no purpose except beauty. They shared their literature, filled with stories of heroes and villains, love and loss, triumph and tragedy. What struck Zethkari most was how many human stories involved sacrifice. Heroes who gave up their lives for others. Ordinary people who chose difficult paths to help strangers. Parents who risked everything to save their children. It seemed like humans admired self-sacrifice more than any other virtue. Why are there so many stories about people dying for others? Zethkari asked during one exchange session. A young human named James answered, because that is what makes us human. Anyone can live for themselves. It takes something special to live for others. Zethkari found this philosophy interesting but impractical. In their experience, species survived by being smart about resource allocation and risk management. Unnecessary self-sacrifice seemed wasteful. During the second week, Zethkari observed something unusual. A small accident occurred in the human section of the station. A piece of equipment malfunctioned and caught fire near where a human child was playing. Without hesitation, the child's mother ran directly into the danger to pull the child to safety. She was burned by the flames and required medical attention. That was brave but unnecessary, Zethkari told Sarah later. Your safety protocols would have contained the fire before it reached the child. Sarah looked at Zethkari with surprise. She is a mother. Safety protocols do not matter when your child is in danger. Any parent would have done the same thing, even if the risk was greater than the likely harm? Zethkari asked. Especially then, Sarah replied. We do not calculate odds when someone we love is threatened. This puzzled Zethkari. The Valtharians understood parental protection instincts, but they balanced those instincts with rational thinking. The human response seemed to bypass rational thought entirely. It was as if their emotional bonds overrode their survival programming. Another strange incident happened during a tour of the human ships. Zethkari noticed that the humans kept small animals as companions. These pets served no practical purpose, but required food, care, and space that could be used for other things. Why do you bring these creatures on your ships? Zethkari asked. Because they are part of our family, a human engineer explained while petting a small furry animal. We do not leave family behind. Well, but they cannot help with ship operations. They consume resources without contributing anything useful. The engineer looked shocked by this suggestion. They contribute joy, companionship, and love. What could be more useful than that? Zethkari did not understand this logic. Love was an emotion, not a resource. Joy was pleasant, but did not help with survival. Companionship could be found among crew members who actually contributed to ship functions. As the cultural exchange continued, Zethkari noticed more peculiar behavior. Humans formed bonds not just with their own species, but with almost any creature they encountered. They seemed to adopt abandoned animals, help injured wildlife, and even showed concern for plant life. During a joint meal, Zethkari watched a human carefully move a small insect from their food to a safe location, instead of simply eliminating it. Why did you not just kill it? Zethkari asked. It was not trying to hurt anyone, the human replied. It was just hungry. I understand being hungry. This level of empathy seemed excessive to Zethkari. Most species showed concern for their own kind, and perhaps a few closely related species. Humans seemed to extend their protective instincts to creatures they had never seen before and would never see again. But despite these oddities, the diplomatic mission was proceeding smoothly. The humans were eager to trade, excited about accessing advanced technology, and genuinely interested in joining the galactic community. They asked intelligent questions about Confederacy policies and seemed committed to following peaceful guidelines. Your species appears well suited for Confederacy membership, Zethkari told Sarah during one of their final meetings of the second week. We hope so, Sarah replied. We have always dreamed of finding other intelligent life. Now that we know we are not alone, we want to be good neighbors to everyone we meet. Zethkari felt confident about the mission. The humans were friendly, cooperative, and eager to learn. Their unusual emotional responses were interesting, but not problematic. Many species had quirks that seemed strange to others. The important thing was that humans showed no signs of aggression or territorial behavior that would make them unsuitable for Confederacy membership. Everything was proceeding exactly according to standard first contact protocols. Zethkari had no reason to suspect that beneath the humans' friendly exterior lay something that would challenge every assumption about intelligence, survival, and the nature of sentient life itself. The real test was yet to come. During the third week of cultural exchange, Sarah offered to share human historical records with Zethkari. We believe in complete transparency, she said. If we are going to be friends, you should know who we really are. Zethkari accepted gratefully. Historical records always provided valuable insight into a species' development and potential behavior patterns. Most species tried to hide their violent past, but humans seemed eager to share everything. The first files Zethkari reviewed seemed normal enough. Early human history showed the typical pattern of small tribes growing into larger civilizations. There were conflicts over resources, territory disputes, and the usual struggle for survival that most species experienced during their development. But as Zethkari dug deeper into the records, they began to notice disturbing patterns. Human conflicts were different from those of other species. Most intelligent life fought for logical reasons: food, territory, mates, or safety. Humans fought for ideas. They had wars over religious beliefs, conflicts about political systems, battles over abstract concepts like freedom and justice. Zethkari found records of humans dying for principles that had no physical existence. They would sacrifice their lives for ideas that existed only in their minds. Even stranger were the accounts of human endurance during these conflicts. Zethkari read about soldiers who continued fighting with terrible wounds that should have incapacitated them. Civilians who endured years of siege conditions rather than surrender. Prisoners who survived decades of torture without revealing information. One file particularly disturbed Zethkari. It described something called persistence hunting. Early humans would select a prey animal and follow it for days or weeks, never stopping, never giving up. They would run the animal to exhaustion and death through sheer determination. This hunting method makes no sense, Zethkari told Veltar. It expends more energy than the food provides. Why would they hunt this way? Perhaps they had no other choice, Veltar suggested. Maybe their technology was too primitive for efficient hunting. But Zethkari found evidence that humans had continued persistence hunting even after developing better weapons. It seemed like they enjoyed the challenge of wearing down their prey through determination alone. Sarah agreed to let Zethkari observe a human military training exercise. We want you to understand all aspects of our society, she explained, including how we prepare to defend ourselves if necessary. The exercise took place on a human ship equipped with training facilities. Zethkari expected to see standard combat drills and tactical maneuvers. Most species trained their military forces to achieve objectives with minimum losses and maximum efficiency. The human training was different. The instructors presented the trainees with impossible scenarios, situations where victory was mathematically impossible, missions where survival was not expected. Zethkari watched to see how the humans would calculate acceptable losses and plan strategic retreats. Instead, something disturbing happened. When faced with impossible odds, the humans became more determined, not less. They started thinking creatively, looking for solutions that did not exist. They refused to accept that failure was inevitable. This simulation has no winning condition, Zethkari pointed out to the instructor, a scarred human named Colonel Martinez. That is the point, Martinez replied. We do not train our people to win easy fights. We train them to find ways to win impossible fights. But some fights cannot be won, Zethkari protested. Rational analysis shows that strategic retreat is sometimes necessary. Martinez smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. Ambassador, humans do not retreat from things that matter. We find another way, or we die trying. During one simulation, Zethkari watched a human trainee named Jackson face an overwhelming enemy force. The computer calculated his chance of survival at less than 1%. Instead of surrendering or retreating, Jackson spent 6 hours planning an attack that would eliminate the enemy but guarantee his own death. Why does he not surrender? Zethkari asked. He could preserve his life and potentially escape later. Because the mission matters more than his life, Martinez explained. In this scenario, if he fails, civilians die. That is unacceptable. But surely saving some lives is better than saving none? Martinez looked at Zethkari with an expression that made the alien diplomat feel cold. Ambassador, you do not understand humans very well yet. We do not do mathematics when innocent people are threatened. We do whatever is necessary to stop the threat. End quote. After the training exercise, Zethkari spoke privately with Sarah. Your military training seems to emphasize sacrifice over survival. Is this normal for your species? I suppose it might seem strange to you, Sarah admitted. But we have learned that some things are more important than survival. When we protect those values, we protect what makes life worth living. What values are worth dying for? Zethkari asked. The safety of innocence, the freedom to choose our own path, the right to exist without fear, the protection of those who cannot protect themselves. Sarah paused. These are not just ideas to us, Ambassador. They are the foundation of who we are. Zethkari found this philosophy deeply unsettling. The Valtharians valued life above all else. They would negotiate, compromise, or retreat, rather than risk unnecessary death. The idea of choosing death over surrender seemed irrational. That evening, Zethkari reviewed more human historical files. They found accounts of humans attempting impossible tasks across generations, building massive structures that took centuries to complete, pursuing scientific questions for decades without clear hope of answers, maintaining ideological struggles across thousands of years. Most disturbing was the pattern of human response to extinction-level threats. When faced with potential annihilation, other species typically sought negotiation or escape. Humans prepared to fight. Even when victory seemed impossible, they would rather die fighting than accept defeat. Zethkari found records of human preparations for asteroid impacts, nuclear war, environmental collapse, and alien invasion. In every case, the human response was the same. They would find a way to survive and fight back. No matter the cost. They do not accept limitations, Zethkari wrote in their private notes. When presented with impossible situations, humans do not calculate rational responses. They seem to view impossibility as a personal challenge to overcome. During their final conversation of the week, Sarah asked Zethkari about their impressions of human culture. Your species is fascinating, Zethkari replied carefully. You show remarkable determination in the face of adversity. Thank you, Sarah said. We have learned that the universe does not care about our limitations. If we want something, we have to take it. If we want to protect something, we have to be willing to pay any price necessary. Any price? Zethkari asked. Sarah's expression became serious. Any price at all, Ambassador. That is what makes us human. That night, Zethkari lay in their cabin thinking about what they had learned. The humans were not the simple, peaceful species they had initially appeared to be. Beneath their friendly exterior was something that Zethkari could not quite understand. A kind of determination that bordered on obsession. For the first time since beginning the mission, Zethkari felt uncertain about recommending humans for Confederacy membership. Not because they were hostile, but because they were unpredictable. When humans decided something was important, they seemed capable of anything. Zethkari had dealt with many aggressive species before. Warriors who conquered for resources, predators who hunted for food, territorial species who fought for space. All of these could be understood and predicted, but humans fought for ideas. And ideas, Zethkari was beginning to realize, might be more dangerous than any weapon. The attack came without warning during the fourth week of negotiations. Zeth-Kari was reviewing trade agreements with Sarah when the station's alarms began screaming. Red lights flashed throughout the corridors as the emergency announcement echoed through the speakers. All personnel to secure positions. We are under attack by unknown vessels. This is not a drill. Through the viewing port, Zeth-Kari could see 3 heavily armed ships approaching the station. They were clearly pirate vessels, bristling with weapons and displaying no identification markings, the kind of opportunistic raiders that occasionally struck isolated stations in neutral space. Pirates, Sarah said calmly, checking her communication device. Probably heard about the diplomatic meeting and thought they could capture some valuable prisoners. Zeth-Kari felt their hearts racing. The Valtharian diplomatic protocols for this situation were clear. Protect civilian lives, minimize losses, negotiate if possible, and retreat if necessary. Most pirate attacks ended with the payment of some ransom or the surrender of valuable cargo. We should signal our ships to prepare for evacuation, Zeth-Kari suggested. Perhaps we can negotiate a settlement before anyone is harmed. Sarah was speaking into her communicator, but not to arrange an evacuation. All human personnel. Condition red. I repeat. Condition red. Protect the civilians and prepare for hostile action. The pirate's leader appeared on the main communication screen. He was a Krellin, a species known for their aggressive mercenary culture. His face was scarred and his voice was harsh when he spoke. Attention station inhabitants. This facility is now under our control. You will surrender all valuable cargo and personnel, or we will begin executing hostages every 10 minutes until you comply. Zeth-Kari expected the humans to begin calculating acceptable losses and preparing to negotiate. Instead, something extraordinary happened. Every human in the room became completely still. Their friendly expressions vanished, replaced by something cold and focused. Sarah, Zeth-Kari whispered, we should consider their demands. They have superior firepower and position. Sarah turned to look at Zeth-Kari, and the alien diplomat felt ice run through their veins. Sarah's eyes had changed. They were still intelligent and aware. But now, they held something that Zeth-Kari had never seen before in any civilized species. Not anger, not fear, but a kind of terrible certainty. Ambassador, Sarah said quietly, you are about to see why humans have survived everything the universe has thrown at us. The pirates boarded the station and began taking hostages. Zeth-Kari watched through security monitors as armed Krellins rounded up civilians and station personnel. The Valtharian security team followed standard protocols, surrendering their weapons to avoid bloodshed. The human response was different, completely different. Instead of surrendering, the humans disappeared. Not fleeing, not hiding, but moving with purpose through the station's maintenance areas and service tunnels. Within minutes, they had established communication networks and begun coordinating a response. Zeth-Kari watched in horror as Ambassador Sarah Chen, who hours earlier had been sharing tea and discussing poetry, began systematically hunting the pirates through the station. She moved through air ducts and maintenance shafts with deadly precision, using her intimate knowledge of the station's layout to track her prey. This is unnecessary, Zeth-Kari protested. We can negotiate with them, pay whatever they want. Sarah paused in her preparations to look at Zeth-Kari. Ambassador, these pirates have threatened innocent people. That is not a negotiation. That is a problem to be solved. But people might die, Zeth-Kari said. Yes, Sarah replied. The pirates will die. All of them. Zeth-Kari watched through the security system as the humans began their counterattack. It was not a battle in any traditional sense. The pirates had expected resistance, but they had expected normal resistance, demands for surrender, defensive positioning, attempts to minimize casualties. Instead, they found themselves being hunted by creatures they had not realized were predators. A human engineer named Williams had been captured with a group of hostages. When the pirate guard turned away for a moment, Williams struck, not to escape, but to eliminate the threat. He used improvised tools to kill the guard silently, then freed the other prisoners. A human scientist named Dr. Park had been hiding in a laboratory when pirates came looking for hostages. Instead of surrendering, she used her knowledge of chemistry to create improvised weapons. The pirates found her laboratory filled with toxic gas and explosive traps, but it was Sarah who truly terrified Zethkari. The human diplomat moved through the station like a force of nature. She did not fight like a soldier or a warrior. She hunted like something that had evolved to kill. For 6 hours, Zethkari watched Sarah track the pirate leader through the station. The Krellin was armed, experienced, and dangerous. He had superior strength and better weapons. None of that mattered. Sarah followed him through 3 ship decks, into zero-gravity maintenance areas, through emergency systems and backup corridors. She never stopped, never rested, never gave up. The pirate leader tried every tactic he knew: hiding, setting traps, taking hostages, attempting to negotiate. Sarah ignored all of it. She pursued him with the relentless patience of a natural hunter. When he set traps, she found ways around them. When he took hostages, she eliminated him before he could harm them. When he tried to negotiate, she did not even acknowledge his words. Finally, cornered in a maintenance bay with nowhere left to run, the pirate leader tried one last, desperate plea. "Wait," he shouted as Sarah approached. "We can make a deal. I have information about other raids, other targets. I can be useful to you." Sarah stopped just long enough to speak. "You threatened innocent people. There is no deal." Zethkari watched through the security monitor as Sarah eliminated the last pirate. It was quick, efficient, and final. No mercy, no hesitation, no doubt. When it was over, Sarah returned to the main meeting room where Zethkari waited. Her friendly demeanor had returned as if nothing had happened. She sat down and calmly poured herself a cup of tea. "I apologize for the interruption, Ambassador," she said pleasantly. "Where were we in our negotiations?" Zethkari stared at her in shock. "Sarah, all of them are dead." "Yes," Sarah replied, sipping her tea. "They threatened innocent people. We could not allow that to continue. But you could have negotiated, paid ransom, found another way." Sarah set down her cup and looked at Zethkari with those same terrible, certain eyes. "Ambassador, if we had let them leave, they would have done this to someone else. Other innocent people would have suffered. That was unacceptable. So you killed them all." "We solved the problem," Sarah corrected. "Permanently." Zethkari felt something break inside their understanding of the universe. But the cost, the risk, the violence, was necessary. Sarah finished. "Ambassador, I think you misunderstood something about humans. We are not violent by nature. We prefer peace, cooperation, and friendship. But when someone threatens innocent people, we do not negotiate. We do not compromise. We eliminate the threat. What if they had been stronger? What if you had failed?" Sarah smiled. And for the first time, Zethkari saw something in that smile that made them want to run. Then more humans would have come. And more after that. And we would have kept coming until the threat was ended. "Forever?" Zethkari whispered. "Forever," Sarah confirmed. "That is what makes us human, Ambassador. We do not accept that evil should exist. When we find it, we remove it from the universe." Zethkari sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had witnessed. The humans had not fought for resources or territory or survival. They had fought because someone had threatened innocent people, and they believed that was wrong. They had risked everything, including their own lives, for an abstract principle. And they had won not through superior technology or strength, but through absolute determination to succeed. For the first time in 300 years of diplomatic service, Zethkari felt afraid of a species they had come to study, because the humans were not just willing to die for their beliefs, they were willing to kill for them. Permanently. Without mercy. Until the threat no longer existed. And they called this solving problems. Zethkari sat alone in their cabin aboard the Times Serenity's Voice Times as it traveled back to Confederacy space. The diplomatic mission was over. The humans had signed preliminary agreements and would soon be considered for full membership in the Valtharian Confederacy. By all standard measures, the mission had been a complete success, but Zethkari felt no satisfaction. Instead, they felt something they had never experienced in 300 years of diplomatic service. Genuine fear of a species they had been sent to evaluate. The final week of negotiations had proceeded normally after the pirate attack. The humans had been friendly, cooperative, and eager to establish trade relationships. They had shared more of their technology and culture. They had agreed to all standard Confederacy protocols for peaceful coexistence. But Zethkari could not forget what they had witnessed. The complete transformation of the humans from peaceful diplomats to relentless hunters. The cold efficiency with which they had eliminated every single threat, the absolute certainty in Sarah's voice when she said they would never stop until evil was removed from the universe. Zethkari's hands shook as they began typing their final report. How could they explain to the Confederacy Council what made humans different from every other species in the galaxy? Classification: Homo sapiens, Zethkari began. Physically unremarkable bipedal mammals from the planet Earth. No natural armor, limited sensory capabilities, no psychic abilities, technologically advanced but not exceptional, socially cooperative with strong family bonds. All true, all accurate, all completely missing the point. Zethkari deleted the file and started again. Warning: unprecedented species classification required. That was better. More honest. Over the following days, Zethkari struggled to find words for what they had learned. Every other species in the galaxy fought for logical reasons. Survival, resources, territory, dominance. Even the most aggressive species could be predicted and understood. Humans were different. They fought for ideas that existed only in their minds. Abstract concepts like justice, freedom, and protection of innocence. And when they decided something was wrong, they did not stop until it was corrected. Not ever. Zethkari had seen aggressive species before. The Krell were violent and territorial. The Vorthan were conquest-oriented and expansionist. The Nexari were predatory and destructive. But all of these species could be reasoned with, negotiated with, or contained. Humans could not be contained. Not because they were more violent than other species, but because they were more determined. When humans believed in something, they became an unstoppable force of nature. The truly terrifying part was not human capacity for violence. Many species were capable of great destruction. The terrifying part was human conviction, their absolute refusal to accept defeat when they believed they were right. Zethkari had watched Sarah hunt down the pirate leader for 6 hours, never stopping, never giving up, never accepting that the task was impossible. That was not normal behavior for any species. That was the behavior of something that did not understand the concept of limitations. They do not negotiate with obstacles, Zethkari wrote in their notes. They remove them. During the final days of the mission, Zethkari had asked Sarah more questions about human nature and history. Your species seems unusually persistent, Zethkari had said carefully. Even when faced with impossible odds. We have learned that nothing is truly impossible, Sarah had replied. Only difficult. And difficult just means it takes longer. But surely there are some things that cannot be achieved? Sarah had thought about this question for a long time before answering. Maybe. But we will not know what those things are until we have tried everything. And we have not tried everything yet. This philosophy was completely alien to Zethkari. The Valtharians understood limitations. They accepted when something was impossible and found alternative solutions. They were practical, logical, and efficient. Humans apparently did not accept the concept of impossible. When told something could not be done, they seemed to take it as a personal challenge. Zethkari had found historical records of humans attempting tasks that took generations to complete, building massive structures, solving complex scientific problems, pursuing ideological goals across centuries. Other species would abandon such projects when the original planners died. Humans would continue the work across multiple generations until it was finished. They think in geological time, Zethkari wrote. Not individual lifespans, but species lifespans. They will pursue goals across thousands of years if necessary. The most disturbing part was that humans applied this persistence to moral principles. They had fought wars that lasted centuries over abstract concepts like freedom and justice. They would sacrifice unlimited resources and lives to protect strangers they had never met and would never see again. During one conversation, Zethkari had asked Sarah what humans would do if they encountered a threat too powerful to defeat. "We would find their weakness," Sarah had said without hesitation. "And if they had no weakness, then we would create one. And if that was impossible?" Sarah had smiled that terrible, certain smile. "Ambassador, we would keep trying until we found a way. No matter how long it took. No matter what it cost. Because some things cannot be allowed to exist." Zethkari finally understood what made humans truly terrifying. It was not their technology, their weapons, or their fighting ability. It was their complete inability to accept defeat when they believed they were protecting something important. Every other species in the galaxy eventually reached a point where they would surrender, negotiate, or retreat. Humans did not have that point. When they decided something was wrong, they would pursue it to the end of the universe if necessary. In their final report, Zethkari created a new classification system. Species type: uncontainable persistence entity. Classification based not on technological capability or aggressive behavior, but on psychological inability to accept permanent defeat when moral principles are involved. Humans do not fight to win territory, resources, or dominance. They fight to eliminate what they perceive as evil from the universe. This makes them fundamentally different from all previously encountered species. Recommendation: immediate, full membership in Confederacy with special status. Humans should be treated as allies, never as enemies. Not because they are more powerful than us, but because they are incapable of giving up. Additional note: if humans ever decide that something is wrong, they will not stop until it is corrected. This could take years, decades, centuries, or millennia. The passage of time does not diminish human determination, it strengthens it. Final warning: we share a galaxy with a species that does not understand the meaning of impossible. We should be grateful that they have decided to be our friends. Zethkari saved the file and leaned back in their chair. In 3 weeks, they had learned more about the nature of terror than in 3 centuries of previous experience. The universe was full of dangerous things. Black holes that could destroy solar systems. Supernovas that could sterilize entire sectors. Aggressive species that conquered and enslaved others. But none of those things were truly terrifying, because they could be predicted, avoided, or defended against. Humans were different. When they decided something was wrong, they became as inevitable as gravity and as persistent as entropy. They would not stop, would not tire, would not give up until the problem was solved. The most frightening part was that humans genuinely believed this was normal behavior. They could not understand why other species found their determination unusual. To them, refusing to give up when protecting innocence was simply what intelligent creatures did. As the ship approached Confederacy space, Zethkari made one final entry in their personal log. "I came to establish diplomatic relations with a new species. Instead, I learned what real terror feels like. Not the fear of death or pain, but the fear of standing beside something that cannot be stopped, cannot be reasoned with, and cannot be defeated. The fear of realizing that some forces in the universe do not follow the normal rules. Humans are our friends now. They have chosen to protect us rather than hunt us. We should pray to whatever forces govern the universe that they never change their minds. Because if humans ever decide that we are the problem that needs to be solved, we will discover that there is nowhere in the galaxy distant enough, no fortress strong enough, and no negotiation persuasive enough to save us. The only mercy would be that when they came for us, they would not stop until the job was finished. Humans do not leave their work incomplete." Zethkari closed the log file and prepared to brief the Confederacy Council. They would recommend immediate full membership for humanity, not because humans would be useful allies, but because making them enemies would be the last mistake anyone would ever make. In 300 years of diplomatic service, Zethkari had finally encountered a species that could not be contained, controlled, or conquered. They had found humanity and learned what true terror felt like.